where I went for 2.5 years, an experience that has been of almost no benefit to me whatsoever. But I was big into music even then, and one of the things I was discovering around that time were blues and old-timey reissue LPs, and I would buy every album that came out of County or Yazoo or Herwin or Origin Jazz. I would fill in the blank, you know. And I was just crazy about this 30s blues and ragtime recordings and all that. Well, I had a couple friends at college who knew a country bluesman from Fairfax, Virginia named John Jackson. I don't know if any of you know his stuff or not, but he had, at the time he had 3 records out on Huli, which were all great records. And they invited me to visit John in his and his wife Cora's home a number of times, like over spring break and stuff like that. We would go from Richmond to Fairfax, and I ended up spending maybe 4 or 5 nights over the 2.5 years I was at college at John's place, and for whatever reason, we just kind of took it for granted, but I think about it now, it's kind of exceptional. He would basically like to have young people come visit, and he would play songs all night long and tell stories and stuff like that, and John was my first living connection to what I viewed as something that was so archaic, you know, from the 30s, good grief, you know, that was 40 years ago, you know. I viewed it as something that was just like almost from another world, another planet, another time or whatever. And here was John, who was like a living repository of that stuff, for whom, you know, he learned from 78. So it wasn't like Mississippi John Hurt or some of those guys, Skip James, who recorded back then, but they were his peers. And he learned from 78s by Blind Boy Fuller, and he played Jimmy Rogers songs and Choir Family songs, and even played like early Elvis Presley and Carl Perkins songs. For him, it was all from the same mix. If he liked a song, he played it. He didn't think about where it came from, you know, if it made sense to him. So fast forward a few years, in 1978, I went to work for a record label in New England, and I knew that John had not had any records out for a couple of years. And so I suggested that we do some John Jackson records. So my girlfriend at the time, Wendy Ritker, and I produced 2 records by John, which the song selections from those records came from tapes that I had made at John's house. And one was called Step It Up and Go, and the other was called Deep in the Bottom. And so I have a lot of fond memories of John. He was a really generous man and very funny. Something he was really, I'm not sure if obsessed is the word, but he, for an illiterate man, he knew a lot about the Civil War. And he used to go out and with his metal detector and dig up, try to find Civil War things. And he had a whole curio cabinet in his house with Civil War buckles and buttons and coins, and he even had like an inkstand that they used, which made of glass. There was something else in the ground that set off his metal detector, and when digging, he pulled up this inkstand, very rare and hard to find. But John, I mean, there are all kinds of areas in Virginia. You can't hunt for relics in those site of old battlefields, and there are other areas where it's just completely forbidden, you know. But John went out the day that we went out, he put on his lucky hat, which was this rumpled old hat that looked like it had been through the Civil War, and he put his earphones on over the top and went out with his metal detector in what was a suburban housing development being built. So there are mounds of red dirt and debris and tractors and all this stuff, and he just went out there that day, if I recall correctly. He pulled up at least 1 Civil War button and a couple of coins from that era. In the course of digging, he of course also found, like, you know, a 1965 quarter or 1970 nickel, you know. And for John, anything that he found in the ground didn't belong to him. He was kind of a caretaker, but so everything went in the curio cabinet. So you'd be looking in the cabinet, there'd be this amazing Civil War era stuff, and then it would also be like a ring that, you know, somebody got out of a gumball machine. That was in there as well. And he would say, well, you know, I don't think that's too valuable, but, you know, it went into the curio cabinet along with everything else. So I had wanted to kind of write a piece for John. So this is called John Jackson of Fairfax, Virginia. And I recommend you check his albums out if you haven't heard them before. So just edit that part